you. Let's call the meeting to order, the regular board meeting of East Dundee, November 17th. Roll call.
Trustee Kunze? Present. Trustee Mahoney?
Here.
Trustee Oakland?
Here.
Trustee Guma?
Here.
Trustee Sauter?
Here.
Trustee Saviano?
Here.
And President Pearson.
Here. Okay, let's do our pledge of allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, I believe we have some public comment.
We have one.
One?
Dick Storm.
I'd like to give you a copy of something before I start. You know, so that you know. Well, I don't want it back.
Okay.
My name is Richard Storm, or Dick Storm. I live at 102 South River Street, East Dundee, Illinois. And I've been here a couple times. I'm handing out something I want you to think about. Kathy and I, we lived there 48 years, and we're constantly walking around town. I want you to be aware of something that we've noticed. Down by Duke's, there's a plaque for the depot. Those are all people that were proud of what they did and how they tried to improve our community. Then there's another plaque inside the parking garage showing those people were proud of what they were doing to enhance the community. And I want you to think about this. If you do this thing with Hager's, I don't know where you're at, are you going to be proud as those people and have a plaque put up like that? Because if you have any doubt that that's going to enhance our community, I don't think it should be voted. You should be voting for it. And I mean, I'm proud of what you guys have done with the parking garage and that. But we've lived there a long time, and we personally don't see how that's going to enhance our community at all. And I'm not in any group. We're just speaking on behalf of ourselves. And just wanted you to be aware of what shows. And I don't know whether you plan on putting a plaque up. I'd be interested because it'll be there forever, and who did it and who was involved. So that's all I want you to think about. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else for public comment? Okay, that move down to the consent agenda. I'll entertain a motion.
I will move to approve in the consent agenda item A, the regular village board meeting minutes dated November 3rd, 2025. Move to approve the special village board meeting minutes dated November 3rd, 2025. Motion to accept the warrants list in the amount of $647,439.50. Move to approve an ordinance amending section 116.05 of the village code regarding Class D liquor licenses. And I will move to approve an ordinance adopting a revised water and wastewater rate, as well as move to approve an ordinance authorizing for the levy and assessment of taxes for the fiscal year beginning January 1st, 2025, ending December 31st, 2025, for the Village of East Dundee, Illinois.
We have a second?
Second.
Any discussion? Okay.
Trustee Kunze? Yes. Trustee Mahoney?
Yes.
Trustee Oakland?
Yes.
Trustee Guma?
Yes.
Trustee Sauter?
Yes.
And Trustee Saviano.
Yes.
Okay, next that takes us down to the presentation and discussion regarding a bike and pedestrian path plan.
Hi, everyone. I have the pleasure of introducing Alyssa Sweeney, Michael Fulkening, and Stephen Pouch from Civil Tech Engineering today. They've been leading the charge on our bicycle and pedestrian plan project. They're going to give a brief update on the project, as well as a near-miss traffic study that was conducted as part of that plan. So, without further ado.
Hi, good evening.
Hello.
Yeah, thank you. Thanks, Caleb. As he just mentioned, I'm Lissa Sweeney. I'm with Civil Tech Engineering. I'm a transportation planner, and Civil Tech was brought on board to assist the village in the development of a bike and pedestrian plan. So today, we wanted to take the opportunity to just provide an update on the plan, talk through the last 6 months or so of progress, and then discuss some next steps. So on the agenda this evening, I am planning to provide a brief project overview, review some existing conditions of what we're seeing throughout the community today, touch on community engagement to date, and then also mention the development of the Complete Streets policy. So we have developed a vision statement, and we'll be holding interviews in the near future to further develop this Complete Streets policy for the village. We will then share some draft preliminary network recommendations, and these have been discussed with village staff, but have not been shared beyond those conversations yet. So we're excited to kind of unveil those with you this evening for any feedback that you might have, and then it'll progress into more steering committee meeting and open house stage. And then I will touch on next steps. We can pause at that time for any questions or discussion, and then I will pass it over to my colleague Steve to talk about that safety study that Kayla mentioned. So focusing on Main Street and River Street, there's a near-miss camera safety study that was completed kind of as part of an extension of this plan development. So just briefly, this is more of a refresher just to set the stage of what is a bike and pedestrian plan versus what the next stages of plan development and engineering would look like. And so the bike and pedestrian plan is really to create a roadmap to prioritize future projects when opportunities are available. One of the largest proponents of this plan development is also the ability to apply for more grants if you have a plan in place. And so combining especially this plan with the comprehensive plan, the Riverfront Master Plan, and then looking how these plans intersect regionally really provide for stronger grant applications for engineering and construction. So this plan does not get into design specifications. In terms of next stages, it really would be further engineering study for the various corridors or intersection improvements that are recommended, as well as additional community engagement. As you're aware, we recently kicked off this bike and pedestrian plan really to improve safety and enhance connectivity for people walking, biking, and rolling throughout the village. It'll build on the village's existing bicycle and pedestrian network and improve connections to regional trails and community destinations, as well as, again, kind of intersect and build on all the momentum from other plans that have been adopted or passed in the last couple of years. Here is a project schedule. So this officially kicked off late spring, early summer. We held a steering committee meeting. We released a public survey. We had a pop-up meeting I'll go through in a little bit more detail. And then now we're entering that bike and pedestrian network recommendation phase. So that was really the discovery, data analysis, existing conditions. Now we're moving into the network development, where again, we will then go to a steering committee meeting, have an open house, and come back to a presentation in the spring with the final plan. So touching on a few existing conditions. So we look at physical, environmental, social characteristics within the village to really understand the current conditions of both the village and the region, and to identify challenges and opportunities, again, for connectivity, improving safety for people biking, walking, and rolling. And this will be included as a chapter in the overall final plan. And so really when we started digging into some of these existing conditions, and so the next few slides are a series of maps that highlight different data sets that we took a look at to then combine with village staff conversations and community input. And so, one of the major factors in the plan development is the number of IDOT routes that go through the village, and so that adds a layer of complexity and coordination for any improvements that are recommended along those routes or intersecting with those routes. And so that's a recurring theme throughout the existing conditions, and so that's something that we are looking to provide recommendations for and to engage IDOT also in that process. And so once we get to kind of more of the safety slides, you can also see that that's where some of those crashes are taking place, at those major intersections where there might not be bicycle pedestrian facilities and are not under the direct jurisdiction of the village. The existing bike network, it's primarily the Fox River Trail. So looking at east-west connectivity, there's not really a good path or system for specifically those biking to connect to other communities and destinations to the east and the west. So that is a initiative or consideration as we develop this network. And this is the sidewalk network. So on this map, you'll see sidewalk gaps in red and existing sidewalks in blue. And so as part of this plan, we are also looking at making recommendations to fill in some of those gaps based on both the analysis as well as what we hear from the community for where there's desired connections. The busiest roads with the highest speeds lack pedestrian infrastructure, and there's few safe and convenient routes to schools. Looking at speed limit and traffic signals, there are only a few pedestrian signals. They're located downtown. So again, we're taking this into consideration in that we want the ability for people to cross safely at these major roadways and even within residential neighborhoods. So looking at if there are additional opportunities for crossing improvements. There are a number of other signals that aren't, that do not have pedestrian signals associated with them at these major intersections, but you can see, there are large gaps as well between signals on major roads. Looking at crash density, so this is between 2014 and 2023. Crashes are most common along the busiest roads and those that exhibit highest speeds of travel. And so the crashes have pretty much kind of clustered downtown and then along major intersections, looking at Penny and Dundee or Higgins, Dundee, as well as the north and south terminus of the village. And here we dig in just a little bit further. This shows crashes involving people biking or walking. So those in orange are biking, those in purple are walking. Somewhat similar trends where a lot of the crashes involving biking or walking are downtown or along the Fox River Trail at some of these intersections, as well as by Lions Park and along Dundee and Penny. So those are just a few of the data sets that we looked at, again, trying to base this in safety and make recommendations and improvements that would improve safety, that might remove people biking or walking from doing so on the street and moving them off street, or providing safe crossing points to reach those key destinations. So we held a steering committee meeting in August, I believe, of this year. We had a number of different steering committee members attend where we shared ideas. We looked to them to provide some strategic guidance for the overall plan, as well as advocate for those recommendations and get the word out about the public survey that we had open at that time. We had representatives from Kane County, from Cook County, from the village, some residents joined, business owner. And so we invited a number of key stakeholders, including some other biking and walking advocacy groups, such as Ride Illinois and Active Transportation Alliance. And then residents also had the opportunity to reach out if they were interested in being on the steering committee. So that's how a few also joined. So as part of this, we really just had a discussion around, we looked at a map of the village. We talked about where there are areas that you see that are hard to cross, the areas that you want to reach but are difficult to. Any challenges or opportunities, just had a brainstorm and really heard from those that are very in tune with the village. Then we had a bike tour after the steering committee meeting. So we went on a bike ride that was about 6.5 miles with a handful of the steering committee members. And this really provides that hands-on approach to really get a feel for facilities and safety throughout the village. And so, we got a feel for going uphill, I think, as we were going up Williams and Reagan in that area. And we also, crossed, I want to say, I think it was 72 at King, and had to, run across. So we got a feel for the different potential opportunities or challenges throughout the village. And so that was very beneficial to be there with others that walk and bike around the village every day. We also attended a pop-up meeting. We went to Oktoberfest at the end of September. You might have seen us there at a table, again, kind of just getting that feedback from community members as to what they would like to see or areas that are potential issues or areas of concern for them. So what we heard, really in terms of priority improvements, it's improving safety at intersections, as well as establishing connections for walking, biking, rolling to key community destinations. So conversations tended to gear towards downtown, Depot area, Fox River Trail, schools, Lions Park, as well as more regional connectivity to adjacent communities or shopping, I think in Carpentersville. So it was great to hear all this feedback. We also had a number of challenging crossings. So Fox River Trail, Main Street, by Lions Park, and the library along Barrington, Jackson and River, again, by downtown, and then kind of where I mentioned along King. There's also a number of desired sidewalks and paths. A lot of these are along those IDOT routes or the high traffic routes or truck routes downtown, as well as like Jackson and Williams and some other types of roadways. Other concerns, noting challenging sightlines downtown, recommendations to improve wayfinding so people know both how to get to key destinations as well as how to get to the trail. Truck routing, noting that Barrington is a truck route and kind of navigating that because that's also one of the most highly used bike routes in the area. Regulations for golf carts, e-bikes, providing more bike parking, marking bike routes. So that was a note for once we get to the recommendations, we recommend mark shared lanes. And so that's just providing some more legitimacy to a bike route, making it more visible for both those driving as well as those biking to know where to go without necessarily having a dedicated lane or space, but having like a mark shared lane and marking on the pavement. And then a desire for regional connectivity. Then we had our public survey and interactive map, which was open from mid-August till the end of September. We had 9 questions in the survey related to travel habits, motivations, barriers, as well as desired improvements. We had about 200 responses, and then we had the interactive map that was also available that you see here on the right, where people could drop pins to note similar issues or opportunities. There were 55 pins and 16 routes included on there. Some general survey takeaways. Over half of those that responded were residents. Otherwise, there were a lot of Fox River Trail users, as well as those that work or come to the village recreationally. The current method of travel, really car is the primary method for the majority of those that responded to the survey, although really all of those that responded did note that walking or biking was commonly used as other method of travel. Largest barrier to walking, biking, and rolling were lack of safe intersections for both or for all walking, biking, and rolling, and then specifically for walking and rolling was lack of sidewalks or walking paths, which helps us say and kind of narrow the focus a little bit more that there is a need for those safe crossings, but then also people do want to have more connectivity in terms of walking throughout the community. And for desired connections, most respondents were interested in connecting to existing parks or trails, followed by residential areas or shopping centers. So again, we thought the residential areas was interesting and good to keep in mind that it's not necessarily everyone just trying to get to the trail or downtown, but they're also trying to just navigate around their neighborhoods and again cross some of these major corridors. and a desire for overall defining spaces for biking and spaces for walking to improve safety. So I think when a lot of people think of walking and biking, they again think of the trail, and that there can be sometimes some conflicts between walking and biking. And so there's a desire to have designated spaces throughout the community for each type of travel. This is the interactive map. So similar takeaways, points are clustered downtown, Fox River Trail, focus on intersections, condition of trail, and visibility issues. So there's a handful of notes of areas that are hard for those biking to see cars, and kind of vice versa. And then noted some, proposed several walking and rolling and biking routes. Okay, so with all of that information, we'll kind of switch gears a little bit for the next few slides. And as part of this plan development, we're also drafting a complete streets policy. And this is essentially a formal way for the village to commit to considering all modes of travel, walking, biking, rolling, whenever a transportation project is initiated or moves forward. And so complete streets policies, you can see in 2000, this is just a map of the growth over the past 25 years or so. 2000, there were 9 jurisdictions with policies. 2020, there were 1,500. By 2024, there's over 1,700 complete streets policies adopted. So it's pretty widely spread. And this also does support all other grant applications, I would say, or other funding opportunities where sometimes you get additional points for having the complete streets policy, in addition to, again, the formal commitment and integrating it throughout village initiatives. These are the elements of an effective policy. I won't read through all of them, but we will take a look at the vision statement today. And then in terms of the benefits of a complete streets policy, so it provides a tool and design and guidelines for that proactive consideration of all users and projects, regardless of what type of project it is or where it is in its kind of life cycle. It also ensures consistency and coordination across multiple departments. So something that we will be doing over the next 3 or 4 weeks is we're going to meet with a few different village departments. We have an interview scheduled with Public Works and Village Administration, Community Development, and then Police Department to kind of talk through how they touch different transportation projects and how best to integrate the project process in this complete streets policy, just to make sure it best fits the village. So it's not necessarily imposing anything on the village, it's just making sure that we're documenting the process in a way that works best. Maximizing opportunities by integrating complete streets early in the planning or development process, and providing a clear path for implementation. So that's also one of those 10 items on that checklist, was potentially creating a checklist, including in scoping or budgeting processes, as well as standards and reviews for private development. And this does assist in securing grant funds. So here we have the vision statement. I'll just highlight a few pieces in this, but this is also a statement that if there is any feedback now or over the next month or two, this is an area that would be good to get any additional feedback as we start to build out the rest of the policy. But really, it's again providing an integrated multimodal transportation network that contributes directly to safety, economic vitality, and quality of life of all residents and visitors, especially the most vulnerable. All roadway projects will take certain guidelines and recommendations into account. The transportation system of the village will be balanced, accessible, connected, easily navigable, where transportation user can travel safely and comfortably, recognizing that, including some destinations in here too. So persons of all ages, abilities, circumstances will be able to use their mode of choice for trips through the village, including key destinations such as downtown, the riverfront, and the Fox River Trail. So we drafted this statement. We had a few questions and exercise with the steering committee, and then coordination with village staff in terms of drafting this.
There's probably one other key destination I'd like us to consider, which would be the schools. We've got Emmanuel Lutheran, which has come to the fore over the conversation of the Hager Pottery, as well as it's not within the village limits, but it's adjacent to it, which is the Dundee Middle School and DeLacy Center and all that.
Sure.
That I think is, when we're talking about walking and biking, is a key route and consideration that we need to take as a destination.
Sure. Yeah, thank you.
Thank
yeah,
you.
We can, include that.
I think she's got that on here right now, pretty close to it.
Sorry?
Path recommendations,
Mhm.
goes right past.
Just referring to the vision statement. Yeah, yeah. Yeah, I'm talking about the vision statement.
Okay, great. Well, that's a great segue into the network recommendations, which we did take schools as a destination, as a
Okay.
key destination into consideration in this development too,
Yeah, I can
even
see
though
that.
they're kind of, right outside. And so for these path recommendations, there are a few different facility types that we've included. Shared use paths, these are 8 to 10 foot paths for those both biking, walking, and rolling. Similar to trails, but they're often referred to as side paths because a lot of times there's maybe a 5 to 8 foot buffer from the street, and then they're off-street facilities. And so these are for, again, both biking and walking. So those are shared use paths. We also have marked shared lanes, which I mentioned before, and so those are for more residential, low-speed streets where sharing a lane for those biking and those driving is appropriate, but there is, again, kind of specific pavement markings or signage to both confirm the legitimacy of the space and then to notify those biking where to go, and those driving that there is, they should keep an eye out for bicyclists. And then we also have 1 or 2 bike lanes on here, which is, right, kind of more of the traditional on-street bike route, but it has a designated space with a double or a single line kind of delineating that 6 foot or so space for bicyclists. So those are the main facility types, and then also sidewalks on here that we are looking at in terms of integrating and creating this network. And so let's see if okay. So with each of those, I guess starting kind of with those shared use paths, it's really along those higher speed roadways where it's not safe to be on street, and you want to have space for people both walking and biking. So we have along Penny, Higgins, Dundee, so along all of the various IDOT routes, and then also connections to the school. So I think along 3rd Street and Van Buren to the north. Having a shared use path would provide for that connectivity. And then we have the marked shared lanes, which again are kind of throughout the residential areas, and to provide some connectivity to parks as well as to the shared use paths that we then anticipate would be along these major roadways. So there would be some connectivity there as well. And then also to the north, kind of by, I think, Bonnie Dundee up to Ravine, and further west. And I also have a Google map I can pull up. We can look at this a little bit more detail if of interest. But also then on the western end along Water Street, north, which could also be a bike lane. We're looking into more if North Street would be, if there's space for a specific bike lane there, or if it would stay marked shared lanes we have noted. And then connecting on 3rd along the Fox River Trail.
So, is it, maybe you explain this, I didn't understand, but shared use path versus marked shared lanes, is that essentially shared use path is off the street and marked shared lanes is on the street?
Exactly, yes.
Okay. And then the difference between a sidewalk and a shared use path would be maybe width? Okay.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, sidewalks are 6 or so feet, 5 feet. And then the shared use path is 8 to 10.
And probably asphalt rather than
Yeah.
concrete. Okay.
Yeah, and then we have proposed on here, we're looking into a little bit further, bike lane on Barrington, recognizing that, you know, it's a high volume, a truck route, but that there's not much room to add a shared use path. So looking to see if there's a way to potentially include a bike lane, but that's kind of something that we're looking into a little bit further. And then also along North, we're also looking into the potential for a bike lane, since that connects to that bridge over the river. Whereas right now, yeah, it's noted as marked shared lane.
I do notice that you don't have anything marked for Water Street at all. Is that? Is there a
Yeah,
reason
so
for that?
we have on here, we have it as a marked shared lane, from just south of the park to, I don't know if it's Hill or Jackson, on the southern, yeah. Yeah. And so that is with the current design around the park, there's not the space for full connectivity other than kind of that off street, like kind of gravel path that exists today. So we do have marked shared lane to connect from like the Fox River Trail to North, and then also down Second and Water to provide some of that connectivity, recognizing that there are a lot of bicyclists that take that route, but that the current configuration and design around the park doesn't allow for that full connectivity, because it goes one way in the current design. It's one way northbound, I believe, near the park.
Correct.
But it looks like at Barrington, or it goes on, was that North Street over to Water above the park? It would be nice if it just kept going up Water Street, because
Yeah.
then it intersects with the trail then just into Carpentersville.
Oh, sure. Okay. So on the north end. Yeah, that's definitely something that we can take a
Right
look at
before-
further.
Right before you hit the edge of the page.
Mhm.
And is the Barrington Avenue bike lane, is that something that with the current footprint of the street, that there's room for that, but we'd have to maybe change whether or not there's street parking to make room for it?
Yeah, exactly.
As far as Barrington being a truck route, we've had limited success trying to eliminate that as a truck route, but in your experience, have you found creative solutions to rerouting truck traffic off of what we would like to get it out of downtown? Do you have any recommendations on that?
We have. I know that there's also a truck routing study, I believe, that's upcoming, and so there is a possibility of looking at that. It really just depends on where they're coming from and going to, and if there's an alternate route that accommodates that. So it's possible. I don't know. I don't want to say specifically for Barrington, but there's the possibility to change the truck route if it accommodates, again, the origins and destinations of truck traffic.
Yeah, and I love the shared use paths that you have, like going 72 and 68 and 25. Like if we had all those, I don't think it's as imperative to get Barrington. I think Barrington would be used a little less if we could use the others to get up the hill and to the library and then out towards 68 or
Yeah.
Penny.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I think Barrington is just more in the village control. Well, I mean, they're all, than the other ones. So it's also in terms of prioritization and then phasing,
Yeah.
trying to keep that in mind too. But that's a great point.
But yeah, bikes will be biking up Barrington with or without the lane, so it would be nice to have whatever we can do.
Sure. For the next slide. Here we just note the sidewalk recommendations. So you'll see here kind of there are thin lines for the existing sidewalk network in kind of light blue, and then the future sidewalk proposed in more of the darker bold blue. So a lot of these are focused downtown, as well as on a few residential streets where we're kind of filling in a gap. So as opposed to creating a whole new, I guess, like sidewalk network in a residential neighborhood, it's more of filling in the gap to connect them to other destinations or side paths or other destinations or side paths. And so one note is also kind of on the northern side along, I think it's Bonnie Dundee, that in Carpentersville, there is a sidewalk along over the border, maybe a property or two down. So that's where we were looking for some of that overall connectivity too.
To take you down to Carpentersville Middle School.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, there's sidewalks to the east of that in Carpentersville. It's, can't remember the name of the street, it changes the name, but yeah.
So sidewalks in general, since it seems like only 25% of our town has sidewalks, is it usually something to try to achieve is getting 100% sidewalks, or not really? It seems like in the Lions Park area, when I've asked around, residents don't seem to want sidewalks, even though they do walk in the street, but they don't want it to go into their yard, basically.
Yeah, and I'd say that's it's just dependent on the community and preferences in residential areas. That's why I think we kind of focus more on safety and connectivity, and if, you know, so if residents have expressed that they don't necessarily want sidewalks in their neighborhood, we have not put it in yet, unless that's a village priority to do so.
But maybe a sidewalk that like links Lions Park to 72, or some sort of like thorough way to people in that neighborhood can get on it and get to the park, but maybe not everywhere, or just one idea to consider, just to link that park to the other streets in the neighborhood.
Yeah, I think that's something we could definitely look into. That was a thought of ours, but again, it's trade-offs of adding a segment of sidewalk just in one section of a neighborhood. But I think that could be valuable to reach some of those key destinations. So kind of even following the path of like the Mark Shared Lane, it could be more of that like multimodal stretch.
So you already have a shared use path, that's hard to say, along what is that, Penny slash, yeah, Penny, that would access the north part of the Lions Park. So the sidewalk recommendations are only a layer of the multiple layers of the different types of paths that could be in here.
Yeah. Just the
I hear-
concrete with the lines in between,
Yeah.
but the other ones would be all other pages.
Then we do also plan to include a number of intersection recommendations. So that has come through as a priority for community members in the village as well. And so we've identified a number of intersections where we would provide some of those recommendations, again, based on safety analysis, kind of crash data, as well as where people are trying to go from what we've heard. And so for each of these, we would include a number of different items from this kind of complete streets toolbox. I don't think this is necessarily all encompassing, but it could include bump outs, refuge islands, crosswalks, rectangular rapid flashing beacons, bike cross markings, signage. And the intent for those would to use it also as like a framework for similar intersections throughout the village too, to incorporate some of those treatments.
I don't know if you're looking for input on this,
Mhm.
but another intersection that would be, if we're gonna do a study, we should look at would be water and 72. It's not marked
Mhm.
on here, but I know we have also got a corridor study doing, you know, that whole corridor there, so maybe it's not a key, but
Yeah.
it is a very troublesome intersection.
I'm sorry, which intersection was that?
What's that?
Water and Higgins.
Carroll's
Oh,
Corner.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, we can definitely take a look at that. And then we did also from this, and Steve will go into more of the near-miss camera study, but at Maine and the Fox River Trail, you know, there are a lot of crashes, I'd say, like within the vicinity, but you know, it's been conveyed from the community and staff that that intersection, and we experienced it when we were out there, right, is challenging. And so recognizing that crashes aren't the only dictator of safety, we explored kind of a near-miss camera to see how many, you know, close calls were occurring in that area. And so Steve will go into that in a little bit more detail. Yeah, so with that, if there are any, I guess in terms of next steps, we are planning on refining the network and then bringing that to the steering committee as well in December, and then to an open house in January. So we would welcome any and all thoughts or recommendations on that, and then we look forward to hearing from the public, getting feedback too. And then, yeah, we would plan to then kind of coalesce all this in a report, and really what we would be looking at is, as a next step, we'd also be developing some of those prioritization criteria so that we could note of those different segments, which ones are high, medium, low priority, and then also phasing tiers. So which ones based on funding or jurisdiction would kind of be tier one, tier 2, or tier 3 for future phasing. And so that would be part of the implementation plan that would be included in the overall plan at the end. And we'll also be completing that complete streets policy. After we hold those interviews, we'll be drafting a policy for review as well.
Quick question, is the regional connectivity, are you looking at the existing trail networks that surround us and then how we get to those? And will that be a part of the plan, like showing those?
Yeah, so we can, and we might have that in the existing conditions already. I'm trying to think if we have a map available. But yes, so we looked at both in terms of like Carpentersville, like their comp plan, and then Hoffman Estates just released a multimodal plan. Elgin's working on theirs now. So reviewing all those plans for where there may be facilities in the future, and then opportunities for grant applications also as joint applicants. And then working with the county, the counties, Kane and Cook, on, again, that regional connectivity and what they have in their own bike plans. So that all, yes, is taken into consideration in this. But that's a good note for us to make it more explicit in kind of the maps and recommendations that we have.
Thank you.
And then with that, I will turn it over to Steve.
So thanks, Lissa. My name is Steve Pouch. I'm a traffic engineer with Civil Tech. So Lissa already mentioned a little bit about the history of the study. It's a spin-off of the bike and ped plan. Really, the genesis of the study is kind of twofold. One is just we heard a lot of public feedback about safety concerns at this intersection. And also, while the project team was out at the intersection during their field visit, they noticed a close call resulting in some road rage and really kind of a scary incident. So looking at crash data, especially for pedestrian and bicycle crashes, sometimes they tend to be kind of sporadic, or you don't really have a huge sample size, but people complain a lot about near misses and intersections being unsafe, but there's really not historically been a methodology to study that up until recently, where new technology has come out with a camera system that views the intersection and can quantify near misses. So like I mentioned, this is fairly new, and this is the first study in Illinois that we've done with this, and maybe anybody. So congratulations on being on the cutting edge of technology.
Okay.
So that's great. So the way this works is, again, the camera's set up at the intersection. We wanted to set it up for several days to collect lots of video, and over the weekend, I believe there's a new festival going on, so a lot of people walking and biking across the street. So we get traffic data back as part of the study. You can see here that there's high volume of pedestrians crossing over the study period. That highlighted that in yellow. This is just during a typical weekday. On a weekend, obviously there's probably 5, 6, 7, 8 times that amount on a good weather day. We noticed that the eastbound to southbound right turn is a pretty heavily trafficked movement. The highest volume of any of the turning movements at the intersection. Counted 9 cars going the wrong way, the one-way southbound leg, coming up and
Oh
going.
my God.
They probably pulled out of the back parking lot and made a left instead of a right. Over by River Lee's
Yeah, yeah.
and the restaurant.
So yeah, it was nine cars over it was over a 12-hour period. So not
That's incredible.
yeah, not infrequent.
Oh, we know where our police should be sitting now.
Can you just back up on these numbers? You studied it over 5 days, and these numbers are not over 5 days, it's an average of the 5 days?
So these are traffic count volumes, and what we get out of this study is just the kind of the 12-hour volumes, but then the safety part of it's done over a several day period. So this is just kind of engineers look at typical weekday volumes when you're designing an intersection. So that's kind of what this is. But yeah, but the safety is much more broadly encompassing of time.
Okay.
And then the final observation on the traffic counts here highlighted in purple. This is 170 here. This is the volume of traffic that's heading southbound through the intersection, and you'll see why that's important in a moment.
So is the red the highest volume, and then orange is medium volume? Is
The
that what
volumes
colors-
it's indicated by the
near
relative
misses.
thickness of the lines,
Okay.
more so than orange is kind of traffic on the east leg heading westbound. Red is on the west leg, and then blue north leg, green south leg.
Okay, so the color just is to trace back to.
It traces
North,
back to
south, east, or south, yeah.
one of the 4 legs of the intersection. Yeah, exactly.
Gotcha.
So this predictive safety analysis, which it's completed by a third-party company called Mild Vision. It looks at a number of different combinations of potential incidents, and for this study we wanted to focus on pedestrian and bicycle conflicts with vehicles. So this shows the 4 types of crashes or potential incidents evaluated, and it does this times 4 since there's four legs at the intersection. So left turns versus bikes and peds, right turns through and the far on the near side of the intersection, through versus far side of the intersection. And so the analysis comes back with a comprehensive report with lots of data and charts and graphs, which are really fairly detailed and kind of engineering specific. So I won't get into those, but really one of the best parts of this study is that for each near miss that is noted, you get a video clip, like a 10-15 second video clip back of each of these incidents. So you get to look at a real quick glance instead of you're sitting at an intersection for hours at a time seeing what's going on. You get kind of a snapshot of all the close calls over the time period here. So I'm going to show a few of these here. The most common conflict that was flagged by MyoVision was the southbound right hook. So that's a driver coming southbound off the north leg and then turning right to go west, conflicting with a bicyclist or pedestrian in the west leg crosswalk. So there are a number of these, dozens of them that were noted. But then when we looked at all the videos, it was more a matter of drivers saw the bicyclists and pedestrians in the crosswalk and yielded to them, but they didn't give them probably as much space as preferable. So it's more of an issue of driver behavior than like an engineering deficiency. So this video here is going to show kind of a typical flagged incident for that type of movement. Just overly aggressive drivers, basically. So let's see. That's the same one. Here we go. The more concerning incident that we noticed, that was generated by this by the report, was southbound through vehicles that would conflict with primarily bicyclists going southbound from the northwest corner to the southeast corner. So the path of the through driver intersects directly with that. So we'll see a typical example of that here.
That guy just took the whole way around.
And so one reason why this is concerning is because it's kind of an unexpected maneuver. If a driver is unfamiliar with the area, they're not expecting someone to not use the crosswalk. Fortunately, there hasn't been a big crash history. Part of it, I think, is just because traffic is moving relatively slowly as they do that, because the road is fairly narrow. But still. So here's another video. This shows some pedestrians doing the same thing. Of course, it's concerning because it's at night. I think this was during the weekend, a Saturday evening. So again,
Just make that whole little
kind of.
triangle.
Yeah.
I mean, the pedestrians and the bicyclists were in the wrong.
Correct. Correct.
But what they should have done is gone straight over, hit the button to cross that little leg,
Exactly.
but there's no button. So you can wait forever and you'll never get a signal.
Okay, fair enough. But what you can also do is not wait forever and at least stop at that corner and look and
Both.
make sure there's not a car coming through the intersection.
Yeah, both illegal, but yeah, you could do that too.
Yeah, right, so, I think actually there is a button at the crosswalk, but.
There's one to go that way, but not to cross over that way.
I think maybe, okay, there might be one button, but the one button will activate both crosswalks. But, because Main Street is an IDOT route, the light tends to be really long, and sometimes people give up waiting, and, that's a whole nother story. But yeah, it's, pedestrians and cyclists will travel the shortest distance between 2 points. It's really just a human behavior thing. It's going to be very difficult to enforce. Putting up a sign is really not going to change behavior.
Was there any data collected on the eastern part of that intersection where it crosses? Because there's another crosswalk
There is.
area.
Yeah. There was data collected there. As I recall, there were fewer incidents flagged, but there was one. I don't have the video here, but I can show. It's in the report. If you can obtain a copy of the report of driver turning and almost not seeing a pedestrian, and I think that maybe drivers are not thinking that there's going to be pedestrians or bicyclists in that crosswalk, because they're all going to be in the other crosswalk, because that's the main Fox River Trail crossing. So when there actually is a pedestrian in that other crosswalk, they're like, oh, that's. But yeah, there were a couple there, but I don't have a video of that.
Man, you're chicken scratch.
Did this report show how many cyclists came across and then decided to be a car instead and just went into the road? It seems like that's pretty common biking maneuver to legally get out of that situation where you have to wait to cross the little arm, because you're allowed to become a car and just get in the lane. But it also confuses cars. I didn't know if there were, I think that was the near miss that we saw.
Well, even in that video that they showed where if the bikes were going across, they split up. Some of them did go in.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's like 3 things they could do really, so it's a lot of confusion, but yeah.
Gas station.
So some recommendations. First, short term. Of course, all of these would need to be coordinated with IDOT, since Main Street is an IDOT route. One potential sign that could be installed is a turning vehicles stop for pedestrians sign. Seen here, this would be applicable on the north leg to basically warn people who are turning right that there would be people in the crosswalk. Another possibility is looking at a full-time right turn restriction. This is right now, this is on the west leg of the intersection, so if you're turning right to go eastbound, the west leg, eastbound traffic turning to go southbound. So there's fairly high volume of traffic that does that. We didn't observe a lot of near misses there, but by making that a more consistent, more enforceable condition, where it permanently restricts turns on red, that could be a real easy way to improve safety. And then leading pedestrian interval. So that is a type of signal timing strategy where someone pushes the button to cross Main Street. The light stays red for all the cars for 3 to 5 seconds, something like that, while the pedestrian walk sign turns on. So pedestrians start to walk for several seconds before the vehicle traffic gets to move. That allows the pedestrians and cyclists to establish themselves out in the street, enhancing their visibility and just kind of giving them a head start. IDOT has not historically done these a lot. They're starting to do that. They have a pilot program. It's mostly at T intersections, but I think that they'll maybe looking at this at other intersections, but this would be, like, you know, of any intersection that this should be looked at. I think this is a pretty important one. So reaching out to IDOT for an LPI, I think, would be a good next step. And then long term, you know, one thing you could do is realign the crosswalk, go from the southwest to the southeast corner. However, if you do that, means that the southbound traffic is crossing, kind of legalizing the southbound traffic crossing through here, as at the same time as pedestrians are. So what you'd have to do is restrict that movement somehow. Probably the easiest way to do that would be to make this a right turn in only, which is by far and away the most popular turn. You wouldn't be restricting that access. And then you'd be modifying the curb here and then doing some signage or pavement markings and things to restrict this you know, the southbound through, and then also be restricting this westbound left. So that's an option, could be evaluated. And then the other option would be to relocate the Fox River Trail to the west side of the street. So that would eliminate that conflict and preserve all turning movements at the intersection. Of course, that's definitely a long-term type of project. And then the other recommendation is to improve sight lines between drivers on the north leg of River Street and people in the west crosswalk here. You notice that the sign here is a little bit of a sight obstruction. We didn't notice any crashes necessarily due to that, but I think that, you know, improving sight distance here could be a benefit.
How did you mark that to limit people driving straight through if you wanted to make that right turn only?
Yeah, that would be a little bit of a challenge. You would do it. You would make this curb so that it would be difficult to do that, and you'd probably have some sort of like angled do not enter sign, and then some signage or pavement markings on the north leg that just say, you know, right and left turn only. It's an option. It's not necessary. It need further study, but yeah. You know what, I'm sure you've seen that at driveways where you have turn restrictions that your drivers do whatever they want to do.
It's not
If
a
they-
terrible idea
sometimes so.
because you can just turn left there and go up to Van Buren and get
Yep.
into that
Mhm.
same area.
Yeah, all these things need, the long-term option, of course, we need further study, rerouting traffic and things like that, so.
You know, Steve, if you go back to the traffic lighting page, and kind of add what we're talking about now, the right turn, there's 1,447 vehicles versus 170 through. Big difference between percentage difference between the two.
Yeah.
It's a big difference. And there's not a lot of drivers turning left to go south either.
The left and the through traffic combined.
Correct.
Yeah, I like that it aligns the trail, like, and it seems like the cheapest way to do that, as opposed to, even if we later move the Fox River Trail, this could be a
Good starting point.
like, would it make sense to do this as a short term if it's like 2 or 3 years out to do something else, or is there a lot of cost involved to set one up? Like that first option, that wouldn't really be worth doing if we're eventually going to do the second.
I mean, that's something I think that would require further study. We really didn't get into the weeds of, you know, costs or
Yeah.
looking at geometrics or IDOT coordination. So that would need to be looked at next. Okay.
And is there a link where we can watch all these near misses?
Yes.
Little
Well,
highlight reel?
there's a Google Drive. I know staff has access to that, and if it's okay, you can share that. Okay. Yeah.
Yeah, that'd be really interesting to see.
We'd also like to get that full report too on the, say that there was a compiled report of the whole near miss.
There is, yes, yeah. We can provide that as well.
That'd be great. Very interesting.
Yeah,
Yeah.
really well done, you
Thank you.
guys. This is so good.
Yeah.
Thanks, guys.
So-
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yes, I know. Oh, yes.
Okay. Moving on. I'll introduce a motion to approve the ordinance adopting. We don't have anybody, are we gonna go over that?
Yes.
We're gonna go over that, right? Okay,
Yes.
I have it right here.
Or somebody can make a motion.
All right, I'll make a motion to approve an ordinance adopting the 2026 fiscal year budget.
Second.
And Andy seconded it, all right?
Do you have videos to show us too, Brandis?
No.
Near misses.
Okay. So this is our final overview of the budget for 2026 before board adoption. For a brief overview, I'll just go over our long-term budget over the last few years. You can see that our cumulative cash has significantly increased. And yes, we are showing for 2026 a negative change in our net position of about $7 million. That's primarily due to a lot of projects in our TIF and water sewer funds, which we'll get into later. Over the year.
Can we go back to that
Sure.
real quick? I just want to, when I saw this, it was alarming to me that we were going to 7 million. But what you have to look at, I think, is that cumulative change in, or change in net position, or no, the cumulative. You know, what we're doing is really going back to what we had in 2023, which is only just 2 years ago. Is that money that, I mean, obviously there's a lot more money in the last couple of years than maybe we thought we were going to have. Is that primarily from the TIFs?
So our TIFs
producing?
have been performing well due to development agreements and incentives that we've offered developers. Also, our general fund has done well with sales tax revenues, also increasing some of our the property tax over the last couple of years, grants that we've received, and also the implementation of new revenue streams such as the streaming tax, the vehicle parking tax, and then just last year the MFT, or the motor fuel tax, our local motor fuel tax. So we've done a few things to put us in a good position on the financial side.
Okay.
And also, we have not done a lot of significant projects over the prior years, so we have accumulated a cash reserve in our TIFs and BDDs, which will allow us to do some of the projects
Well,
that
we
we're
had,
looking for.
in the past, maybe in this, even this 2018, a lot of these TIFs were in bad shape. So it's nice to hear that they're actually finally producing.
A lot of the TIFs will expire in the next 5 to 10 years as well, so we do need to use the money that we've accumulated, because if we don't use it, we'll have to give it back to the other taxing bodies. So this is a chart of our village debt, and I have it broken down into several sections. So this is our general obligation debt that we have accumulated. It doesn't show all of the debt. The ones that we've paid off is not included here, but as you can see, the ones that we still pay on, we started with about 23.4 million, and we are down or anticipated to be down at the end of 26 about 10 million. So we've made significant strides in paying off our village debt on the general obligation side. And then we do have a few IEPA loans and some other debt that we are paying off, such as our fire protection district debt, the loan that we paid for to acquire this building for our police department. And then we have a smaller debt with our Motorola police radio project. And that totaled about 13 million, and at the end of 26, we are anticipated to be at about 2 million left for our principal and interest. And then finally, we had a big discussion about our police pension debt, and I combined a normal and amortized debt. That's basically what we owe our unfunded liability, and that totals about 17.4 million. And then at the end of 2026, we're anticipated to be about 15 million. So altogether, we have a total of 26.5 million that we will owe at the end of 2026, starting balance at 53.5 million. So we're doing pretty good with paying off all of our debts.
So the Motorola police radios, isn't that through Quadcom?
Yes.
Why is that on here?
We have to show it as part of our debt through our audit, so I just include all
We
of our
didn't pay
debt.
for that up front, did we?
No, we're paying overtime,
Yeah.
so we have one more year.
So how is it our debt? Isn't it Motorola, isn't it Quadcom's debt? Or-
We're paying Quadcom 13,000 every year.
Correct,
Yes.
because they went in, I guess I just don't understand. That's not our debt though, is it?
It's our debt.
Really? That's
Yes,
how we-
it's a part of our leasing and our debt that we have to report for as part of our audit.
Okay.
I think it's our liability, but it's their debt.
Yes.
Yeah, okay, that's.
Good way to
that's
put it,
okay,
yes.
Yeah, okay.
So, yeah, but they're paying for it though.
And this is just a chart summarizing all of our debt service over the past 20 years almost. So since 2014, the village has taken on a total of about 65 million in debt. And the peak of that was in 2017, and that was about 44 million. And then in 2024, the village took on a 2024 GO bond for the construction of the parking garage at 5.5 million. And again, you can see our total debt balance is anticipated to be 26 million at the end of 2026. And what's not shown here is the potential for another bond or IEPA loan for water and wastewater related projects, and that we have anticipated at 13 million.
Now, I feel like every time we talk about that number, it goes up.
Yes.
Am I imagining that?
That's the same amount from last year. So
Then
we
yes.
have not done any additional studies to look at cost for 2026 just yet, but we're hoping to bring something before the board.
So, but the budget that we're approving now doesn't impact that number because aren't we doing some of these
So
projects?
we do have some lead service lines included, and we also have the standpipe included, but we did not bond out for it specifically.
Exactly. We're using our own money for that.
We
So
are
why would we-
anticipating using
What's that?
we are anticipating using a loan for the standpipe rehab.
We
but
just haven't got it.
It's not reflected here, so I just wanted
But-
to call that out separately. It's not reflected in the chart, but we are anticipating potentially bonding out for that one project.
Yeah. But that's not 12 million.
No, that's not. That one project that does not cost 12 million.
Yeah.
Was the water tower rehab in it last year?
We presented it to the board last year, but we did not budget for it last year.
Right.
We are anticipating budgeting for design engineering in 26.
When do we find out
But
about
that
those
number's
loans?
not changing, the 13 million, that's why I got confused. Because we added that one in, didn't we?
Yeah, I was a little confused, and I'm glad you brought it up, because I was questioning that too. So Phil, the standpipe rehab is like a little over $1 million.
Mhm.
And then there's the Route 68 water tower, which needs to be repainted and rehabbed, which you have like at 100,000.
No, that's around 900.
800.
Yeah, but the
design
engineering is
Mhm.
100. I thought we reversed those. Does one need to be more than, or we requested that you look at that last time? Which is a bigger priority, which has got the greater need at this point? Is it the standpipe is? Okay. Okay.
They're both in that.
They're both bad.
But they're like edged out.
Okay.
Should be priority.
All right.
When do we find out about the loans?
Late spring, early summer, June-ish.
And as we discussed last meeting, or maybe it was the meeting before, if we're unsuccessful in getting the loan this time around, we're just going to have to go to the regular GO bond. We won't be able to wait any longer to fund these projects. So we tried last year, we didn't get selected. We're going to try this coming year. If we don't get selected, we have to pivot and make a different decision.
So we do present for our general fund a balanced budget with the anticipated surplus of about $100,000. The other TIF funds or BDDs that may be underperforming, we will anticipate subsidizing with other TIF funds through transfers, which will be presented to the board later in the year once we get a better idea of spending and revenues. As always, we do budget based on our strategic priority areas. Our TIFs and BDDs are fully funded. Debt service payments are fully funded. And we are presenting $11.5 million worth of capital and new initiative projects to the board for 2026. We have anticipated deferring $3 million of projects. We are fully funding our police pension contribution based on the Lauterbach and Almond recommendation, and we also have $100,000 of contingency, $50,000 in our general fund, and $50,000 in our water sewer fund. So I'll skip over this priority areas. As you can see, our budgeted revenues, about 40% of it comes from the general fund, and then the remaining comes from between our water sewer fund and our TIF funds, and then the rest are kind of sprinkled out under 5 or 4%, I guess, for the other funds that we have. Our total expenditures, about 30% of all of our fund expenditures come from our general fund, and that's just our general operations for public works, administration, finance, police, public works. And the remaining 57%, which is the next largest chunk, is broken down between our water sewer fund, TIF funds, and debt service. And those are primarily the areas where we have our largest capital and new initiative projects budgeted out of. So for general fund revenue overview, we are projecting revenues to total about $8.8 million, and our budgeted expenditures to total $8.6, and there leaves the surplus of about $100,000. As you can see, our general fund revenues have significantly increased over, or I guess have been pretty stable over the prior audit periods and prior budget cycles. For end of
It's showing
year,
here that you're gonna have a surplus, that you're anticipating a surplus of $1 million this year,
yes.
this year, 2025.
Oh, the year we just passed, yes.
So, okay.
So that surplus will, I can show you, We are anticipating transferring half of that into our capital projects fund, and that's to help offset some of our future capital projects.
Okay.
And then if the board so chooses, we can make an extra contribution to our police pension fund, or we can continue to allow that revenue to build for future projects. For general fund expenditures, let's see, a majority of our expenditures for 2026, as always, about 70% is dedicated to our personnel, and that includes salaries, any insurance, things like that. And our largest department expense are related to our police pension, our police fund department at 60%. New initiatives for 2026, we do have some training that we're looking to do in our police department, new exercise equipment, just calling out a few things. We do, again, have our potential retirement of our building inspector, so we do have an overlap of expenses for training for the replacement. In our Public Works Department, we are anticipating creating a new position, a new managerial position, and that cost will be split 50-50 between Public Works and our Water Sewer Fund. In our Community Events Department budget, we did add 3 new events: an additional Wind Down Wednesday, a back to school event, and a Halloween event. We also transferred or reallocated about $10,000 of expenses that we were using for depot market or depot related expenses into our general fund from our BDD fund, just because it's more of a routine expense, and our depot area is more of a general operating now than it has been in the past. We will continue to fund our computer and software replacement program for each department. So to get into some of the other funds, we did create a new fund for our parking garage, and that does have one expense, new initiative for the year, and that's the parking garage sensors and electronic signs.
It's $113,000 for that?
No, so I actually had to fix that slide. So that amount is actually $11,000 for that budgeted expense. But the total expenditure for the parking garage and just maintenance, and we're just anticipating, because it's our first full year running the HOA, we're projecting it to be about $113,000.
That's the dues for the HOA?
Between the dues, any camera expenses, things like that. So for our MFT fund, we do have our street improvement projects dedicated there. As you can see, the list of projects are ones that we previously budgeted in this year but were not able to get to. And that total for resurfacing projects are $724,000, and that includes engineering, construction engineering, and things like that. For capital projects, we have about $1.7 million budgeted, and that includes equipment, 3 new trucks for our Public Works Department, and that will be through enterprise lease that we're adding on to. For facilities, we have 2 projects. One is for right-of-way improvements over near Mockingbird, and also a kayak kiosk. Streets, we have the continuation of the pedestrian bridge improvement project that's in conjunction with West Dundee, and 2 overhead overhead utilities, and that's all within the downtown. And then the Van Buren sidewalk project that we've discussed before, and hopefully we're able to get a grant for that.
Is that gonna generate revenue?
As far as IT, we do have the potential to purchase 4 new flock cameras. We did, or we are eligible to receive a $10,000 grant to help offset those expenses. We have 2 studies that we plan, the continuation of the bike and ped plan, which we discussed tonight, and hopefully some engineering costs to go toward implementation of a few of those ideas. And we also discussed the regional truck route study. That's also included. We have 1 community beautification project, and that's for the Fox Riverfront improvements. And then the Lions Park stormwater detention project is also budgeted.
Nice. Is that the estimated cost of that entire project, or is that?
610, yes, sir. For Lions Park.
That's where you have the flooding, right?
Yeah.
When is that gonna start?
In the spring.
Spring?
Joe's currently designing bidding here in the next couple of months.
Nice.
All right, next we'll get to our business development districts. We have a total of $52,000 of new initiatives
Raven.
budgeted. Yes.
Question. You skipped over the unbudgeted new initiatives. Is that stuff we're not doing?
Yeah, I just
26.
kind of condensed this so I didn't bore you all repeating things. So this is just a more condensed version of the one that's in your packet.
Okay.
So new initiatives, we have $52,000 budgeted for within the 3 BDDs. And those new initiatives include the lightning detection system, and that will be helpful for our community events. We are splitting the cost of the truck parking plan study in one of the BDDs, and then installation of downtown electrical outlets is also split between the BDD and also one of our TIF funds. We will be doing a transfer from one of the BDDs to cover the 2024 GEO bond for the parking garage, and that will be transferred into our debt service fund. We have 2 TIF funds that have projects allocated to them. The first is for the downtown TIF, and we have about $2 million projects dedicated. And one is for the sound stage at about 1.9 million, and then the splitting of the electrical outlets in the downtown, and also maintenance for Hager for 50,000.
Is that like the fence and stuff like that?
Yes, just any routine maintenance that comes up for there. And then we will also do a transfer of $871,000 into the debt service fund to cover the expenses for 2 of our bonds, as well as the fire district loan repayment. In the North Cook County TIF, we have 1.3 million of new initiatives, and that will include 3 projects on Hines Drive. One is for resurfacing of the street, and then one for extension of Hines Drive, as well as the replacement of a utility pole. And finally is our water sewer. We have about 5 million of new initiatives budgeted here. That includes the utility extension for about 1.7 million. This is offset by a bond that we hope to get next year that we plan to repay with our permit fees that we receive for a major project in the area. Lead service line replacements, standpipe painting. Sorry, there's a glare. Water treatment plant, emergency generator, other plant improvements, as well as clarifier reconditioning, rebuilding the centrifuge, oxidation ditches, and starting a 3-year sewer televising program. As mentioned before, we do have $100,000 contingency, $50,000 in the general fund and in the water sewer fund. And our cash balance policy. Essentially, we are to maintain a 35% cash reserve, 25% for budgeted expenditures, and then 10% for cash flow. And that's in both our general and our water sewer funds, as those are our primary operating funds. Any excess or surplus that we have in the general fund will be allocated to our capital improvement projects fund, and also to make any additional contributions to our police pension so that we can help or more quickly pay down the outstanding liability there. 100% of the reserve or surplus for water sewer will be reserved for future capital projects. And there are no changes that we're recommending for this cash balance policy for 2026.
Can we back to water and sewer initiatives real quick? This utility extension, 2.7 million, is that part of that projected $12.7 million bond, or no? This would be in addition to that. The standpipe painting and rehabilitation, 1 million, that is part of that.
Yes.
How much of this 1 million are we paying out of this budget? None of it? And what this is entirely going to be? It says offset. That's the only reason why I'm asking. What does that mean, offset?
We are hoping to have either the IEPA loan or bond out for this project.
Right. Meaning we will not put in any of our cash for it?
No.
Okay.
That's not the plan right now.
Okay. Thank you.
And just to clarify, because you brought it up, the first bullet point, it states that it's offset by a bond, but the likelihood is that it will be offset by a revenue that will come in to cover the cost of that in its entirety. So it's not likely that we would bond for that first bullet.
So that would give us a surplus at the end of the year?
Well, the hope is that there's a large permit that would come in next year.
Got it.
That would cover the entire cost of that.
Okay.
So would that give us a surplus then?
Yes.
2 million or 2.7?
Well, it wouldn't be a surplus, it would just be that we would have other additional money
Okay.
to potentially put towards, a standpipe or whatever, without having to borrow as much. You see? So
Any
big
questions?
picture, excellent job by the entire team putting together
Yeah,
what I
good job,
consider to
guys.
be like
Yeah.
an incredibly responsible budget. Great job by the village board to prioritize the needs of the community and make sure that we're funding all of our obligations at a level that's responsible. When I look at that debt chart and I see $64 million in debt in the 2010s, it's suffocating. And to look at where we are now, able to not only pay our debt, but also make investments in the community, it's a good place to be. And it's not to say that we don't still have work ahead of us, because, there's still unfunded priorities that need to be addressed. But we're incrementally chipping away at all of those and putting ourselves on a path that's leading to a really good place. So I appreciate everybody's due diligence. This was a very comprehensive and responsible budget, and I thought that all the input from the board was excellent, and the result is, I thought we were really ambitious in 2025, and it is really actually nothing compared to how ambitious we're going to be in 2026. So, the enthusiasm from the team has not waned in the face of that additional fun we're going to have next year. So I'm looking forward to what we will accomplish if this budget passes this evening.
Yeah, I've said this in years past, but I'm gonna say it again. On page 131 of the packet, you have your kind of executive summary of the budget and the accomplishments that we've had in '25, and the new businesses, and just the infrastructure growth, all of, and your goals. It's, you guys are killing it. It's really, really, and having seen some of these recaps, it's a big difference. It's a huge night and day difference from what we've seen in the past, so keep it up.
All right, we had a motion to approve in a second. Do we have any more discussion? Any more questions? All right, let's take a vote. Thanks, Brandis.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Brandon.
Trustee Kunzi?
Yes.
Trustee Mahoney?
Yes.
Trustee Oakland?
Yes.
Trustee Guma?
Yes.
Trustee Sauter?
Yes.
And Trustee Saviano?
Yes.
Okay, now that brings us to item C. Who's talking about that?
I'll hand this one over to village attorney in a second, but these two items, C and D, did we have a motion?
Yeah, we did not make it.
Discussion.
There is no.
It's just discussion.
Oh, sorry. Yes, I was gonna say, I put them on just for discussion because you hadn't been briefed on them in the past, so if there's any questions about them, they're mostly procedural, but I didn't want to put them on for approval without you having a chance to chew on them and digest them and ask questions and provide feedback, so village attorney, take it away.
Thank you. So the first item up you'll see is potential amendments to section 34.03, which is the procedure in which the village participates in requesting bids for contracts over $25,000. As you can see from the way that the code is written, that procedure is not only antiquated, but it's also inefficient and not cost effective for the village for a multitude of reasons. First, it's requiring publication of proposals in the local newspaper, which, as we all know, there are better and more efficient ways to advertise for bids. DemandStar is a platform that local governments can use for free that many contractors have already pre-signed up for, and they get alerts on those bids. The village's website is a really good resource as well. So to say that the newspaper would be the exclusive way that the village would advertise for bids would slow the process down quite a bit, and it's just not the most efficient or cost-effective process.
I mean, is that what we've been doing? Only newspapers? We haven't been only. We've been doing.
We're on Demand
Those
Star.
other things as
We're
well
on
as
Demand Star.
Demand Star, Daily Herald, the website.
We're just trying to get rid of the newspaper part.
I think whatever the recommendation is, I can't recall. I wouldn't mind doing it in addition to Demand Star. It doesn't hurt.
So we would keep the newspaper in this.
Well, I think it would be more of a choice, right? So the village staff could publish in the newspaper if it wanted to. There's nothing precluding that from happening, but the code would say that publication on the village's website or an online procurement marketplace is all that is required.
Yeah, right. So the newspaper is not a requirement then? It's an option?
Not the way I've drafted it, but I could add it.
No, it shouldn't be.
No, yeah.
Hold on. It's used. Like, it's used by contractors regularly, the newspaper. So we wouldn't want to just cut out a whole part of what old-timey, old-school contractors use. So there's like a whole section in the newspaper that's reviewed daily by people, so that's for this part. Now, I'm okay with going further and beyond, but I wouldn't want to cut that out. How much is the actual expense for publishing? $15 or something? Or?
No, it's not $250, $250.
$250
Yeah, it really
each
depends
time?
on how big the advertisement is. I try to put a summary up.
Is this policy change something that others are doing? Is it a trend in doing this? Because
Yes, most municipalities at
So
this
that-
point do not advertise in the newspaper. They just put it on DemandStar or their website.
So then contractors should know that that's the direction that it's going if they want to look for the business,
I-
correct?
I personally would disagree with that statement. There's quite a bit that still use it, so I wouldn't want to lose that direction. And if that's like the whole change here, I don't want to limit us to that either. I just feel like we shouldn't really get rid of it if we're already having issues getting people to bid our jobs. It wouldn't make sense to remove something.
That was gonna be my comment. Trouble getting enough bids for projects.
I would trust Matt's
Yeah.
opinion on this personally.
Yeah.
Okay, so add newspaper
I don't
back
care
in.
either way, just bring it
Yeah, I
up.
don't mind adding the newspaper in too.
No problem. The second change, it states that currently the village clerk will have the plans and specifications for the bids in her office. We would amend this to allow for details of the bid to be placed on file at the clerk's office or on the village's website. So that
Yes.
way people don't have to travel all the way into downtown East Dundee to get the information.
I agree.
Okay.
Subsection B does not specify that the advertisement will have a deadline date and time for responses, and that the responses will not be considered after the deadline. I think that's very important because you don't have that in your code. It creates a little bit of an ambiguity, and it allows, for pressure upon staff if somebody slips in past the deadline. If this way the code specifies a cutoff, then there's no doubt that, if your bid's not in, then you don't get to bid.
Absolutely.
Sounds good.
Okay. Subsection C, I changed this. It calls for a cash deposit, a cashier's check, or a certified check as a bid deposit. I, didn't think it was best practice for staff to be handling cash deposits and having to set up an escrow for the cash. So I recommend striking the word cash and instead adding the term performance bond. So you can post a performance bond, you can give a cashier's check or a certified check as your deposit on the bid.
Sounds
Yeah.
good.
Okay.
Yeah.
Agreed. That seems like the industry standard.
Okay, subsection D was where I had a minor freak out, is your village attorney. It currently requires the village board to open bids, and that's not good for a few reasons. One, if we had to wait for every time we call the public meeting for you guys to open a bid, I can't imagine how that would slow down the process. Staff usually gets the bids in, they open, they review, and then, of course, it comes to the village board for approval, and you have an opportunity to review that information, discuss it with staff, and or approve or not approve. I just thought, one, it's probably not a great idea to have the village board opening bids or have to call a special meeting when we need something opened right away. And then, that would require public discussion potentially as well on things that we may not even have enough information for. It's probably best to let staff vet it first and then bring it to the board.
Review
Agreed.
it, grade it with the different priorities like you guys do, and then make your recommendation. Absolutely.
Yeah, and that's what we provided for.
And this would still be publicly open, correct?
So,
Or an opportunity to
yeah,
have some
once,
type of viewing?
once the bids are selected, then the public will have an opportunity to review the information.
So currently, we get a peek at the RFP before we put it out. Are we saying we won't get that now?
I know, if the staff, as a courtesy, sends the RFP language out to you all ahead of time, then that's just been the internal policy. That has nothing to do with this. What this is when the bids come in, so let's say you get 10 bids and in response to an RFP, the code currently requires the village board to open those bids publicly.
That's gonna be a long
Which
night.
hasn't been practiced.
Yeah.
So we
it's
have
just-
Right.
Yeah,
Yeah, I was gonna say, that would be like 10 o'clock in the morning, we would be showing up.
And we'd have to call a
open the
meeting
bids.
for that.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
So,
Sorry.
I'm reading through this here. My concern is it's still publicly open, or the opportunity to be viewed. I know we saw a lot of it in COVID, where they would do it publicly viewed over the internet or a phone call, whatever it is, so that the bidders can know who's the lowest.
And some
bid.
municipalities do that, where they'll have like a Zoom call or an
Mhm.
opportunity, or they'll say, come to Village Hall, the boardroom at 10 a.m. on, November 1st, we're opening the bids, you're invited to come. They'll have that invitation. Not everybody does, but if you want, we could put that in too.
I would just want some type of source where if somebody was tracking the job, they could watch it or attend in person. I don't really care how we do it, whatever's easiest for the village, but they would need to access any of the bidders.
What if bids are only accepted electronically online, and instead of paper copies open in public, there's a due date and time, but then once those are submitted, those are still also available to anyone who seeks copies.
After
of
the
those
deadline?
RFP, after the deadline.
As long as there's a process for anybody to view it easily and readily
So then
available.
establishing that perhaps online.
Yeah.
Copies of it if it's not open in public.
There is one.
Water Street, their street project, bids were submitted online and opened via virtual bid opening.
Yeah.
So that's how that project was handled.
Perfect. As long as it's available for
And
people
so
to
then
view.
all bidders could see everybody else's bids after the deadline?
Yes, actually, anyone from the public,
Okay.
bidders and otherwise are welcome to, if they see the bid advertisement, they would have access to the link to the bid
Okay.
opening. So anybody in the world can observe that.
Cool. And that seemed to work well?
It was the first time I've ever been exposed to it, and it seemed to work great, yes. Yeah.
Good.
Oh, that's 73.
Then I would pick a date, so this is tomorrow.
That's fine.
Okay. All right, we can add a provision that provides for viewing.
Yes, as long as
After
it's just,
deadline,
yeah.
Okay. And then finally, current subsection E authorizes the village board to choose the lowest or highest responsible bidder, but does not make clear that the village board may reject all bids. I think that's an important provision to have because it protects the village from any ambiguity or liability if you say, yeah, none of these bids really reflect what we're trying to do with this project, or does not reflect the values of East Dundee, or we don't feel like any of these bidders are very qualified. I want to give you the right. You always have the right, but I want to provide that in the code, that you have the right to reject all bids.
Right.
Sounds good.
That's fine. I agree with that. There's a part of this subsection D that we didn't go over that adds a provision that a bidder may not approach a village board member or committee to discuss the bid unless requested by the village administrator. I'm not understanding that where it comes from.
This is just an ethical issue that no bidder may approach any member of the board before there's a bidder selected to say, hey, did you know, I put in a bid and we really would like that job. It's best for a bidder to not approach any member of the board or any official until the bids have been opened and tabulated. If there's questions, the board can call in bidders to answer questions, or staff can call in bidders to answer questions. But for a bidder to approach a trustee or a staff member one-on-one before the bids have been
I'm all
opened.
for that.
Very annoying.
So,
Yeah.
It
no,
protects you
there-
really too.
All right, so I've never seen this before in any villages. Do you have any examples of this in place anywhere else?
I believe the city of Waukegan has a provision
Okay, so one. Okay.
that I can think of off the
Okay,
top
so
of my head.
I just never seen it anywhere, and I feel like I don't see where if someone's going to be taking some kind of bribe or something like that, there's processes already in place. If someone wanted to ask a bidder what their intentions were or what they're doing, I just don't see the point of having the wall there.
If a bidder has a question, there's always a way for them to ask those questions through the RFP process. There's a time frame for them to ask those questions, and there's also a staff member for them to reach out to.
Absolutely, but now trustee, we're looking at the view of the public, right? So like we want to make sure these projects have whatever it may be. Doesn't this limit us talking to them too?
No, because again, you could decide, hey, we've opened these bids, the staff has tabulated, I have more questions, I would like some of these bidders to come in, I'd like to ask them directly about
But
this
I
project.
wouldn't be able to just talk to somebody on my own?
Well, no, not before the bids have been opened and tabulated
Well,
and
not-
sent before you.
Not opened. I'm saying afterwards, before the job was awarded. Yeah, there's a due diligence process.
Hold on, this also says that the bidder may not approach a village board member,
Right.
but you're asking about you going to them
Mhm.
to ask clarifying questions. That's
Right.
different than the way this is worded.
Yeah, the way that I worded it is that the bidders are not coming
To you.
to you to say, hey, I submitted business.
I'm just trying to find like how I'm looking at it pretty deep. I'm just gonna be honest. Like, so if I went to them, who's to say they didn't come to me? Like, it just seems like there's like a wall here, and I ask bidders all the time, information.
I mean, the best practice is for the bidder really to ask staff questions if they have any concerns or any questions about the bid, and for the trustees to go through staff.
What is the negative point of someone that's been elected asking a bidder that's gonna do a project in the town, what their goals are?
Because you're not giving all the other bidders the same opportunity to be asked those same questions, and there's a fairness component.
But it's already been submitted.
It's still a fairness component. You're having a conversation that other people aren't privy to, and there's information that might be shared in those conversations that the other bidders may not have.
So what you're saying is that it's better not to do it privately or one-off, ad hoc,
Correct.
for the protection of the village, as well as for the bidder. And if there was something that was that complicated with a number of bids that were coming, then just have a special meeting or something like that.
Right.
Where we can ask, so that it is open and a public meeting that can be witnessed
Correct.
by the outside.
I honestly have to look into the provision much deeper, so.
I'm okay with this.
I mean, that's why we put it on for discussion, so we could have these
I like it.
conversations. Figure out the best way forward.
No, I'm gonna be honest, I think it comes from a situation that happened with a present bidder where I asked to talk to him about something. So
No, I
that's
don't
where I'm
think that-
Oh, no,
not
no.
really liking it, so.
All right.
I'm not aware of any conversations anybody's had about any bids, but this came because I was asked to review I want to make that clear. This came because I was asked to review the village code. We have an outstanding list of code provisions to go through, and these are just the first two I got to.
We talked about.
Coincidentally,
We
we've
talked
talked about
about
this
this
many times
years
before. This is not a point the finger at any board member or any staff member. This is simply just a cleanup.
Well,
Yeah.
I guess my only question would be, Lynn, does this count for after, you're saying after the bids are open, and then it comes to the board and we select a bid not to sign a deal, but to authorize staff to negotiate a development deal?
Well-
At that point, when there is a contractor that has been selected, at least preliminary selected, wouldn't it, in that time between that development deal and that selection process, wouldn't that be an appropriate time for
I've
trustees?
seen you do it two ways. I've seen you do it the way that you just described, where it's up for some sort of discussion, staff makes a presentation here, and the board gives direction, right? So at that point, somebody's tipped off, hey, this might be, we're gonna go with bidder A, this might be the direction we're going in, staff's authorized to negotiate. It always comes back to the board to approve the actual contract.
Of course.
So, but it doesn't have to be that way either. It could come straight to the board for approval of the contract in the same instance, where the staff puts in the packet the information, here are the bids we received, here's our recommendation, here's
Sure.
why, and here's the contract for approval.
Sure. I guess I'm just want to make sure that during that time, we would be able to talk to that developer, or we would not, under this.
Under the
this
first
provision.
instance where you're giving direction and then to come back.
Yes.
I think as long as the bids have already been submitted, then it should be fairly free rein to have frank discussions.
Yeah. If there's
I agree with
yeah.
that point,
Yeah.
after they're submitted.
After
they're
submitted.
Okay.
Not before.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's fair, because that is the process.
There could be some risk if you're not awarding to the lowest bidder.
Understood.
And not just submitted, but after the deadline,
Thank you. After it's opened.
after it's closed, right?
Good clarification. Taking notes here.
All right. Did we get all the information you needed, Kelly?
I think that's all I need.
Okay, well, let's move on to D, discussion direction regarding the administrative adjudication process.
Love that word.
Adjudication process.
So I'm gonna lean on Chris a little bit to give some information on how this might work in practice. So as you can tell from the memo, Governor Pritzker signed a new bill giving hearing officers what I call injunctive relief. So prior to this bill being signed and prior to January 1, 2026, hearing officers are only able to issue fines for ordinance violations of any kind. A hearing officer giving an order that, for instance, you must clean up all junk and debris off the public way might be put in an order but really has no effect because that hearing officer doesn't have any power to effectuate that order. Unlike a circuit court judge that can hold someone in contempt or issue an order authorizing the village to clean up. What the legislature has done is given hearing officers that injunctive relief. So if hearing officers determine that someone's in violation of a municipal code section, whatever that may be, they can give them a date in order to comply, along with a fine. have to give a fine. They can give a fine or not give a fine, but they can issue an order saying you must do X, Y, or Z by December 1st. And if a property owner or a violator does not do so, then the hearing officer may authorize the village to then do that. So that's a new law that's going into effect January 1. And so all I did here was update your current code to provide for that injunctive relief, giving the hearing officer that authority.
So what we're saying is that if we say a landlord has a code violation, that their front steps are falling apart.
Right.
We could go in there and fix the steps on our dime and then bill them for it. Is that what
Correct.
we're saying?
That is correct.
Okay, so what if we do something where it's gonna cost $100,000? And then they say, so we do it, and then we bill them, and they say, well, I don't have $100,000.
Right. Well, then you can lien the property.
Well,
I think in reality, this doesn't actually occur all that much, and I would say like the $100,000 expense is sort of on the high end. Where I've seen this happen most frequently, and you end up spending more money, which is why I think this bill came to be, you end up spending more money to take it to circuit court because somebody didn't mow the grass, or there's debris on the property that hasn't been cleaned up, or there's some kind of public nuisance or hazard. And, you know, it would cost the village our own time of our own staff going and cleaning it up. But we don't have the ability to do that right now because we can't enforce that without going to circuit court. So if we had this adjudication process in place, then our own adjudication officer could say, okay, village, you can go and clean up this hazard, and then, you know, if the property owner doesn't reimburse us, if we expend any amount to either dispose of the debris or whatever, then we could lien the property. But, you know, I've seen,
Essentially, it's saving us money, really.
right, I've seen many instances where, you know, a municipality would spend $20,000 in legal fees to cut grass that hasn't been mowed in over a year. And that's kind of backwards, which is why this is a good thing, so.
Now, in this case, would it still have to have board approval before any of these actions were taken?
No.
Can it be added? Because it is such a rare instance.
I would suggest if we were gonna add that, we would put it above the, so like right now, all expenses over $25,000 the board approves. So like, I don't think it would be useful to take everything to the board if it was $500 or $1,000, but I could see if it was over village administrator's spending authority, sending it to the board, so you don't have these instances where you're spending $100,000 on something without the board being completely aware and supportive.
I guess where I'm coming from, I just feel like I wanted to be aware of a situation like this before we kind of took action. So, and I feel like going through like the due process of like, hey, should we repaint this home? Not saying that's what it would be, but fix the steps for $100,000.
Sure. Is that something that can just be put in the biweekly reports for discussion
I was
later?
gonna say, what I'm concerned with adding that into the code is the hearing officer is an independent contractor, and it would be usurping their authority to some degree. I think what we could do is have an internal policy, you could always do that says any action that would require a fix of that kind to that extent the village board would be informed before requesting that an adjudication, something like that.
Chris, how often does
Yeah,
this happen? That we would have to apply this?
Not very often. There's typically 30 to 40 notice of violations sent out per year. Of that, between 10 and 20% end up in adjudication hearings, and of that, you know, 2 or 3 of them are not in compliance at that point. So it's not a lot, but this tool would be beneficial to have a little more authority over getting these things done in a timely manner instead of dragging them out for months and months and months. Because sometimes they do drag out.
Is this specific to building code violations or?
No, it's for any code violation.
I would add to what Matt said is have it internal, so if we are doing something like that, it would be nice for all of us to know in case one of us gets an email or a call from this resident. I would feel really weird not knowing what's going on, especially as the village president. So I think that would be something we can do internally and not put it in the ordinance. I wouldn't want to make it a big.
I mean, I guess, I want to think about it a little bit, I don't want to think about it too much out loud, but another thing we might be able to do is provide for any lien amount in excess of 25,000 must be approved by the board before being recorded on the property, something like that.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
But does this take away the right of any business or landlord to go to circuit court if they want to? This makes the
No, this is the same.
the hearing officer the final say?
This doesn't change the process. No, the hearing officer is never the final say. So anybody that receives a judgment in administrative hearings, whether it's for $5 or 500,000, well, it wouldn't be more than 50,000 jurisdictionally, has a 35-day window to appeal in circuit court always.
And at any rate, that hearing officer would only be giving us the option to do this.
It's the hearing
It wouldn't be
officer's
an order.
option, it's the hearing officer's order. The same way it would be a judge's order, it could be the request of the village to do that. I mean, Chris could request at a hearing and say, hey, this person, you know, is non-compliant, we've worked with this person, we've tried X, Y, or Z, we need to get this done, this is a safety issue, we're asking not only for the fine, but the authority to go in and do this ourselves if they don't comply. And it's up to the hearing officer whether they want to grant that action or not.
And
And
who is the
ultimately-
hearing officer in these examples? Is it a third-party person that gets commissioned, or?
It's a third-party contractor,
It's the
so
one we
it's not
use
an
for,
employee of the
like,
village. It's an attorney that's contracted to hear these cases.
Okay, so it is an attorney, not just a
It's an
contractor.
attorney.
And the village usually pays for that procedure?
The
Or
village
proceeding?
pays contractually, like it does for other outside contractors, but those decisions, the hearing officer sometimes sides with the village, sometimes does not. It just depends upon the evidence presented.
All right.
So I can think about the 25,000 and how we handle that, and we'll bring it back with some solution.
Yeah.
I would be much more comfortable if it was like 5,000. We have a history in this town of people being targeted by this government with this kind of thing. Not by anybody in this room, I just want to say that, but in years far long past.
That's true.
And I guess I just want a means to check that somehow.
So I'm gonna put a blanket for the next ordinance, and I'm gonna let the board decide what that amount should be for the threshold.
But we wouldn't be allowing one of us, or all of us, or the village president, or village administrator to put this fine on somebody. This would be an attorney who is hearing a case and decides that it's fair.
It's always the way it is. So you have this process now. You have a hearing officer now that issues fines all the time that the board never really
Yeah.
sees or hears. I mean, it's a public process, but, you know, they hear evidence, there has to be proper notice. Chris has to make a case, or whoever, you know, if it's police, has to make a case before the hearing officer that they proved that the allegation existed or happened, and then the respondent always has an opportunity to defend themselves.
I think in this case, it's just a little different because it's someone's home. So we want to make sure that it's protected. If with the police, it's like a law breaking of a different sort.
It may not always be someone's home, and there may not always be an opportunity to lien. So for instance, if somebody, I'm trying to think of a situation, dumped a bunch of stuff on somebody else's property, I don't know, you know, and that homeowner is away for 6 months of the year, and the village would have authority to clean it up. It could be a situation where you wouldn't necessarily lien, the village is just gonna take action because it's the right thing to do, or necessary.
Okay.
And I think that, you know, most of the time that would be fine. I think Matt's right though, in the instances where it is homeowners, I would want to, you know, tread more lightly, that's all. Personally.
Okay. Well, let's think about it and come up with a number later. Okay, moving on. Reports. Let's start with Trustee Coonsey. You got any reports for us?
No report.
Trustee Mahoney?
Yeah. We don't have another meeting before our next big event, Dickens and Dundee, on Friday, the 5th of December, and Riverside Parade of Lights on the 6th. I want to thank everybody, Franco and Catherine and all of the Public Works team gathering and catching all the deliveries for all of the new decorations that we ordered, and that we'll be able to use again next year. So thanks to everybody on that. Tomorrow is the next scheduled leaf pickup day by Flood Brothers. Looking forward to that. It's the first time we're going to be using it. I just want a safety warning for all those cleaning their yards. It's very dry out, and we ended up putting out some fires on our back lawn because the muffler of our tractor caught some of the leaves on fire. It's a little exciting for a little bit on Saturday. So just beware, have a garden hose out, yeah.
Can I
hopefully-
add to that? There was also a fire here in town where some embers flew into somebody else's yard and started a fire.
Yeah, there was one in
Luckily,
Cary
the
as
fire
well.
department got there really quick and got it out. But
Yeah, there was another pond fire up in Cary and another one in Barrington Hills too. So it's very dry out, and yeah, just watch all that, and that's all I had.
all right, Trustee Ackman,
No report.
Trustee Guma.
Just wanted to say thanks again to Brandis. That was a wonderful budget review over the last couple months. And everybody have a nice Thanksgiving.
Thank you.
That's
That's
it.
right. You too.
Yeah, you too.
Trustee Satter.
No report.
And Trustee Saviano.
Just letting you all know that MIM from NIU Center for Governmental Studies that did our strategic plan is working on a arts master plan with the Arts Council so that we can have all our wonderful ideas organized in a way where we can do a lot more, be strategic about it moving forward, and it aligns with our master plans because it's the same people doing it. So we review a revised proposal Wednesday at the meeting, so that's all I have.
Okay.
Is that something you guys are paying for with the Arts Council budget?
With our budget, yeah.
Okay.
Erica. This is your
Checking.
whole.
Yeah.
Just a reminder, if you didn't grab a hat, there's some in the break room, and if you want more than one, feel free to take more than one. That is all.
Phil. Anna. Brandis.
Thank everyone for their participation in the budget process. I appreciate it.
We appreciate you
We
making it
appreciate
easy
you.
for us to
Well done.
meet and
All
understand.
y'all.
Joe, you got anything? Chris?
No report.
Caleb? Fire? Police?
No report.
Thank you. And, happy Thanksgiving, everybody. Enjoy yourselves. And don't forget, everybody text Erica that following Saturday. It's her birthday.
That's fine.
Happy birthday.
Do we have an executive session? Okay, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Yeah.
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none, motion carries.
Also, it's Caleb's birthday, the day before Thanksgiving.
Oh, really? Yeah, it is, actually.
Birthday.
I think I have it in there.
Caleb's birthday today?
No,